Danny from PICO here. At the time of recording, right around Halloween time, so I thought I'd get in the holiday spirit. Now, we want to be covering persistent anchors in this video. Last video we had spatial anchors. You can look at that video if you want to set that up. So we'll be building off of that project. So if you have spatial anchors, it creates that in your memory. So if you close the application, that spatial anchor will be gone. So the next time you start your application, it won't be there. So to fix that, you can persist a spatial anchor. So not only is it in your memory of your device, but if you persist it, it adds it to the local disk of your headset. So the next time you come in to your application, you can load all the spatial anchors and you can get the position back. So if you needed to set up a most elaborate like a road system for some kind of game or build castles, this would be the way to kind of do that. In this video, we'll be covering how to persist and unpersist your spatial anchors and how to kind of delete them, and then we'll go over how to load your spatial anchors and how you can change the different prefabs or the things you add onto all these spatial anchors. First, we'll start off with making the spatial anchors with a little prefab, just XYZ coordinates, so you can actually see which direction, orientation, and the position of the spatial anchors when you load it up. Then we'll go back through, and things are just falling everywhere. Then we'll go back through and change those spatial anchors into the road prefabs that we made before. And then you're able to add your road to create what kind of system you want, close the persist it, close the application, and then you're able to load it up and the roads will be exact the same place as you had it before. Let's get started. We'll start off by making our anchor prefabs and then allowing you to quickly choose between the different settings. We'll make a menu canvas, then we'll go through all the persistent anchor methods, make a demo, and then we'll do a second demo to show what you can do with the anchor prefabs by replacing them with the road prefab. Requirements for this project, as usual, PICO OS 5.11, the newest SDK 3.0, and we're using Interaction Toolkit 3.0 and Unity 2022. Let's start off by duplicating our anchor manager scene. Let's just call it persistent AM, persistent anchor manager, whatever you want to call it. Let's duplicate our game object with the anchor. Let's just call it anchor manager. Then turn off the old anchor game object that had the previous anchor script. Let's go to the anchor manager itself, duplicate that, call it persistent manager, anchor manager. All right. Now I want to be adding some extra prefabs here. So we're going to do our anchor prefab. So have the same thing we set up before, a preview that's on the left controller. When you press the grip, show the anchor prefab. When you let go, we're going to be instantiating the anchor prefab. So left to show the anchor preview, let go to instantiate the anchor prefab at that location, which will create your anchor, your spatial anchor. So then we're just going to give a little button there to open the menu. In the menu, you can then later persist your spatial anchor that you just created. So we're going to do the exact same thing here for the left grip, same thing on the right. So instead of showing what before, we'll be showing the anchor preview. When you release it, we're going to instantiate the anchor prefab. And going off what we did in the previous project. Let's add the persistent anchor manager. Just let's use the cached items we used before. So let's create our anchor prefab. Let's put the ball prefab as just like a reference of the size I want my anchor to be. Let's create the parent for the anchor. So I'm just going very quickly here. Just a parent, I want that at scale 1 to 1. Then inside it, I'll just have a little cube, roughly the same size as my ball prefab I made earlier. And this will be the middle of my anchor. We're creating this just so you can have a reference of a direction where you'll have a Z for the blue, the Y will be our yellow, and then the X will be our red. So making a little directional so you have a sense of direction when we drop the anchor. Because I want to show you that these spatial anchors, even when you persist and you load it back, you're still able to preserve the position and the rotation of your objects. So these just add the materials, nothing too fancy here. And these are just, again, just to showing you the direction when we drop something. Let's make this a prefab, drag and drop into our prefab folder. And now then to have prefab, we want to have this as our preview. So let's move this to our left controller and delete the controller visual that we don't need. Let's move the anchor prefab there. And let's reset the position. Now I just want this slightly ahead, so I'm going to move it in the Z direction. And I want to, just in case we make changes later, you don't need to make this a prefab. So unpack it, move it slightly, 0.3 is about right there. And then I want to call this my anchor preview. Let's go ahead and go back to our script, and let's add all these values here. Anchor preview, ball preview, same as before, road preview. And then the prefabs from our prefab folder that we've had before, the road, the ball, and our new anchor prefab. These are references to our different buttons here, and we need to create a new one for our left grip. So let's go to here, go to InputAction Map. Let's create a left grip. At the same time, while we're here, let's go ahead and create a button. Let's use our right secondary to open our menu. The left grip will be our anchor here. The right grip was the road. The left primary was just deleting the last object that you put in, and the right primary is to drop the ball. Let's set up our bindings. So XR controller, PICO, and grip pressed. And then XR controller, PICO, and then this is secondary button there. Make sure you save the InputAction Map. And let's go back and let's find the left grip. Remove the previous anchor manager. And let's create a menu. So make sure you have Text Mesh Pro imported into your scene here. XR event system, and then the UI, XR UI canvas. The main thing about this is you need a track device graphic raycaster for your canvas to work that's in the world space. Let's go ahead and add a image. And this will be our background for our menu. Change the color a little bit. And usually I start off with a scale of 0.01 for my canvas. You can use the player model kind of reference a certain size of the menus or UIs you have in the real world. This doesn't need to be too fancy. We're just trying to show more about utility here. So let's use UI and go Text Mesh Pro buttons. So we're going to be creating buttons to allow you to do the different methods that are available to you when you're working with persistent anchors. Let's just set our canvas here, make sure you stretch it. That should be the right size. Let's change the font down to 20. And then for the first one, we want to be able to allow you to persist our anchors. And once you're able to persist something, I want to have you the ability to unpersist it. So when you're persisting something, you're adding it into our local disk, and the unpersisting deletes it from your local disk, so the next time you're looking for it, it won't be there. It's a little bit long. Let's just call it, actually we would like the size. So I'll keep the size, but I'll change the name. How about that? A for anchors, you get the idea. And next. Want to be able to remove the objects. Actually, let's call it destroy, since we won't be just removing it, where we're actually going to be destroying the objects from memory as well. And then one of the more important ones here for doing this is loading all the anchors. When you load all the anchors by using query spatial anchor, it loads everything in memory, but also loads the spatial anchors from the local disk as well. And then for the end all, we have the button to unpersist and destroy. So when you're trying to destroy something or unpersist in it, make sure you unpersist first before you lose reference to your anchors. So unpersist, then destroy all. That's the right idea for that. And these, so persist, these ones we persisting and persisting what you currently have. And if you want to delete everything, you load all the anchor, then destroy all. Okay, that looks good. Let's just clean it up, change all the names here. Make sure you spell correctly. Okay, that looks good, just for me to have everything. And current just mean current. Persist the current objects you have in the field. Unpersist the current amount of objects you have in this current session. And then destroy all of the current objects right now. So when you're trying to destroy currently, that's all the things you destroyed, that you added recently in this specific play session. And let's move the menu canvas into our main camera. We just want it in front of you. And then let's just move it to a certain distance. 1.5, 1.7 is usually good. Now we can add our menu canvas to our menu object cache from our script. Looks good. And then on click, we're going to be doing something from our script. But we haven't really wrote it yet, so let's go ahead and open up our script. Back in our script. And let's go and add our controller for our state, for our menu active state, just Boolean. So when you press the right secondary, so let's add that button there, right secondary dot action, and let's change this to right secondary. And then you do an enable, you do an disable when you're subscribing to this. And let's copy that. Run right secondary. We will do a menu toggle. So we're going to use that Boolean as our menu toggle. Just do the opposite every single time you press it. And then we'll just set that value to our menu object. And then this should be right secondary pressed. We'll change the method name there. Looks good. So let's see where we should have room. Next, we're going to be working, we're making our method for, okay, change delete to make sure it's spelled correctly. Okay, now we can work on our new method. Our method here, for delete last object, I want to remove delete last object, yeah. I'm going to remove it from my anchor map just in case. Alright, now we can do persist public void. This will be calling it from our menu button there. So make sure we actually have something that you've actually created. So we've actually created some spatial anchors. Anytime you create a spatial anchor, it will be in our anchor map. So if it's not empty, we have spatial anchors you can persist. And let's turn our dictionary into a list. So then we can use a for loop. The reason why we're using a for loop, just because the for loop will allow you to wait for the methods we're going to be using. Persisting, query, all these are asynchronous ones, and you're going to need to actually wait until they're done before you can move on to the next one. With a for each loop, they won't respect this waiting, but the for logic will. So let's go into our key value pair, call it item. Item 1 will be our ulong, and then transform. Also, we want to be having a list of ulongs. These are our anchor handles. So as we're creating these things, we should have the ones that we've actually persisted already. So in case in one session you're creating multiple ones, persisting it, creating more, persisting it, we just don't need to keep adding it to our list. So if we haven't already added it into our current persisted list, Let's go ahead and allow you to persist. So item 1 is the key. Item 2 is going to be the transform. Since right now we only need the items. And let's wait by using PXR mixed reality and just persist, spatial anchor. And it's going to need an anchor handle, which is our item.key. If we get a success result, if it's success, you can write something. You don't actually really need to do anything here. I just write some kind of debug log just so you can visually see, read it in your console or logcat that this is done correctly. So the ULongs is actually not consistent. The only thing is only consistent is the UIDs. So if you're needing the UID for like specific amounts, you can always persist your anchor, use the anchor handle, and then grab the UIDs, and then store that somewhere if you're going to need it later on if you want to, like say, use a persistent anchor, associate the UID with a specific prefab. You can do that later. So copy the method and let's just change it, call unpersist. So this is going to be doing the opposite. If you want to unpersist what you currently persisted already in our list, make sure our list is not empty for our current persisted objects. And let's go through that. And each item will be an anchor handle. And again, waiting. So unpersist, you're going to need to wait. And the item here, we already have the anchor handle. You can change that. Let's clean it up a little bit. Again, you don't need to add anything here, but nice to have. And that looks good. And once you unpersist something, it's nice to just go ahead and clear our list, so you don't have to redo it all over again. And then once you unpersist it, then you can delete all the objects. And deleting the objects, and let's go ahead and write that code for that, for delete all. So previously, delete last object deletes the object that you instantiated, but also deletes it from memory. And how do you delete everything? We'll just, as long as our object stack is not empty, we'll just keep calling delete last object. Then we'll just pop everything off the stack, delete everything, delete it from memory, delete from anchor map. And then second to last, load all anchors. So for query spatial anchor, if you leave it empty, it will just load everything from memory and load everything from local disk. So anything you persisted and all the recently created spatial anchors. If you give it an array of UIDs, then you can grab specific ones. So this is a success. Since we already finished with the query spatial anchor, now we can use a for each. So just as long as you don't have query spatial anchor inside of a for each, you can use a for each in this method here, like how we're using it right now to go iterate through our anchor handle list from our results. So let's make sure that the loaded anchors isn't something we already have in the current field already. Let's go ahead and instantiate, locate the anchors. So for the anchor prefab here, later on we're going to come back, we're going to change the anchor prefab into whatever you want. We're going to be using our RoadPrefab. So now to grab the locations for our different items, use local anchor, and then local anchor needs the anchor handle, which is a ulong, and then it'll pop out a position and orientation. Of course, we can just do the locate anchor first and then instantiate, do all that, but I just want to write it out so you can see what I'm kind of doing. Later on, we're going to come back and clean this up a little bit more. And make sure you keep track of everything by adding it to our anchor map, adding the objects you just created into our object stack. Another reason why we're going to be using anchor map is you can use the anchor map by using what's that thing called? Spatial drift. Yeah, we haven't handled spatial drift yet, but in a previous project we already talked about it. In a later project, we'll go over how to add spatial drifting to our project. Right now, just for this project, I want to focus just on persistent anchors. Make sure you keep track, add to object stack, great. And then if it's not in all persist list, let's go and add it to all persist list. Once this is populated, we're going to be able to use this all persist list by doing a delete all kind of thing. And let's go ahead and make that delete all unpersist and delete. Remember, best practice is unpersist first, then you go ahead and destroy the spatial anchors that's in memory. So make sure you unpersist first. So make sure that all persist list from our load all spatial anchors is not empty. Then use the for loop because this is going to be async method here, so we need the for loop. Grab our anchors, handle, then let's unpersist that anchor. If it's success, great, we can move on. Make a little debug note here. Then after the for loop, we're able to unpersist everything. Now we go ahead and call delete all objects. So it's able to destroy in our memory. So unpersist from our local disk first, unpersist everything, then go and delete all objects. Now that we created our methods, let's go through our menu cabinets and add those to our buttons. Unpersist, and destroy current ones, and load all the anchors, then unpersist destroy all. I know destroy all is labeled incorrectly right now, but that's fine. I know, it's destroy the current ones. Let's go ahead and turn off our anchor preview so it doesn't show up first. Great, let's save. And let's go ahead and build. All right, this is our menu here. Let's go ahead and add our anchor, preview to show. Once you let go, it creates our spatial anchor in memory. And you got the buttons here. So if you destroy it and not persist it, when you go load all anchors, we destroyed it in memory. It's not in our local disk, so we're not able to load it. So if we want to be able to come back to different sessions, still see everything, you have to persist the anchors. Now if you destroy this one, you're going to be destroying it in memory, but next time you come back, you're able to load all the anchors, and the anchors show up as they should. Great. Destroy the current ones. Let's turn it off. Come back. This is a new session. And let's open up our menu and load all anchors. Different session. Anchors are still in the same spot. Great. And that's good. Let's destroy it all. Load all anchors. If you're unpersistent, try to load it. Since we destroyed it in memory, destroyed it in our local disk, and they're all gone. Very, very nice and easy. Make sure you persist. Make sure if you unpersist, once you load all the anchors, since you unpersisted and destroyed your current session, nothing will load. Great. Now let's go back to our load all anchors, and let's clean it up a little bit. Let's call locate anchor first and use that position and orientation to change the position for instantiation. Great. Now let's change the anchor prefab. And this could be anything, but specifically for this project, we want to be using our road, because we're going to be setting the road prefabs as our anchor points. And then for different sessions, let's say if you want to create a bunch of like railroads area, these could be walls around your house, but just for the sake of this project, I created a bunch of roads here for my game that I want to preserve. Load all the anchors. Let's create a bunch more and persist it, and then check this working. Great. Let's go ahead and close it out. Come back into a brand new session and load all the anchors, and voila, we have our anchors back again. Can't wait to see what you guys make.